Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
The Kriti form, as devised and evolved by Sri Thyagaraja, actually offers for a very deep and wide study, I would say, because he has given us so many varieties in the form and content. As mentioned in one of the earlier episodes, also, a typical Thyagaraja Kriti consists of a Pallavi, Anupallavi, and Charanam, and the tune of the Anupallavi getting repeated verbatim in the latter part of the Charanam. So, this is something very typically seen in many of his Kritis. Like, for example, Marugelera o Raghava, where you have the Anupallavi, Marugela Chara Chara Rupa, and then the Charanam. And then in the latter part of the Charanam, that same tune, what is there in the Marugela Chara, gets repeated in Ninne Gani Madi Nenajala Norula. So this is something we could attribute to Sri Tyagaraja. And this was also a very catchy format, I would say, because of the fact that many later composers who came after Sri Tyagaraja adopted this particular format of the Kriti for many of their compositions. In this context, I could probably give you the example of Sri Patnam Subramania Iyer, Sri Mysore Vasudevacharya, Papanasam Sivan, Muttaya Bhagavathar, GNB, and many others who came later actually adopted this format in a very successful manner. Now, if you look at Dikshadhar, he did not resort to this particular format at all, in the sense that in his compositions, we see that there is fresh music each time in each of the sections, whether it's a Pallavi and Samashti Charanam or Pallavi, Anupallavi and Charanam, whatever it be. You see that in his particular Kritis, every section adopts a fresh kind of a melody. Coming back to Sri Tyagarajar, we look at other forms or other ways in which he has looked at the Kriti, the facets of the Kriti that he has created for us. Now, there are also some compositions which would probably fall under the domain of the Kirtana, like the Pallavi, Anupallavi, and multiple charanas, and all the charanas coming with the same tune. For example, Yeti Janma Midikha Orama, where the Anupallavi, Yeti Janma Medi, that goes like that. Then the charanams, there are multiple charanams where Sati Legeni Mara Koti Lavan Yuni. Then the Mudra Charana. Sagara Shaya Nuni Thyagaraja Tuni. Another example in the same variety, without the Anupallavi, but different charanas I can give you is Narayana Hari, Narayana Hari, Narayana Hari, Narayana, Narayana Hari, Narayana Hari, Narayana Hari, Narayana. Nashwaramaina Danashwamulanune Vishwasilcha Bhuteshwara Hari Hari, Narayana Hari, Narayana Hari, Narayana Hari, Narayana. The Mudra Charana. Naju Pulumi, Nachukutanamo, Nejudani Tyaga, Rajulla Malaru, Narayana Hari, Narayana Hari, Narayana Hari, Narayana. So examples of this kind of composition you can see in many of the Divyanama Sankirtanas that Sri Thyagaraja has created for us. Now, he has also adopted a format very similar to Dikshadhar, I would say, in terms of not repeating the melody of the composition in any part of the composition. Example for this I could take is Bale Balendu Bhushani in the Ragam Riti Gaula, where you see that the tune of the Anupallavi and the tune of the Charanam do not bear any semblance at all, and each time they take up fresh melody. I'll just sing the first line of the Pallavi and go into the Anupallavi and Charanam to give you an understanding of how he has used the Ragam Riti Gaular in all its dimensions in new colors each time to give you the Anupallavi and the Charanam. Bale Balendu Bhushani Bale Anupallavi Palalochani Shri Amba Palalochani Shri Amba Palalochani Shri Dharma Vardhani Sakala Loka Janani Bale. The Charanam Rame Pranatarti Harabdhi Rame Devakamini Lame Thyagaraja Bhajana Sakame Durjana Gana Bhime Namana Sunani Charana Mula Sada Nemamuto Puja Jasitini Rama Sodari Vai Velasina Shri Shamale Dharma Samvardani Bale. Here you would have seen that in Riti Gaula how he has beautifully elaborated the ragam, focusing on its multiple aspects, the important key phrases. I just remembered another composition of his where just in one line he essays the whole of Riti Gaula to us. That is the genius of the great composer, where they can use minimal things and give you beautiful products out of that. Like Paripalaya, 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 Raghunatha, Paripalaya, Paripalaya, Paripalaya Raghunatha, Paripalaya, Paripalaya, Paripalaya Raghunatha. Tanuveni Kanuvaina Sadamura Raghunatha, Paripalaya, Paripalaya, Paripalaya Raghunatha. Sthirachitamu Varasami Karapitamu Raghunatha, Paripalaya, Paripalaya, Paripalaya Raghunatha. Like this, we see that the Riti Kola has been captured so beautifully in a very elaborate manner as well as in a small manner. We look into another composition where you see that the tune of the kind of each charanam is so different and never repeated. Like Broche vare vare Raghupate broche vare vare Ninu vina broche vare vare Shri Ramane naruna broche vare vare Sakala lokanayaka broche vare 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 naravarani sari broche vare vare raghupate broche vare vare దేవేంద్రాదులు మెచ్చుట కులంక దయతో దానము సంగి సదా ప్రోచే వారే వరే. Like this, you see that each of the charanam will go in a different tune. Then we come to compositions where you see that the charanam is some kind of an amalgamation between the pallavi and anupallavi, like Rama Bi Rama Ramaniya Nama Anupallavi Samaja Ripu Bima Saketa Dhama Charanam Nikedaya Bhuti. If you examine this particular composition, you will see that the charanam is kind of a add-on, I would say, of the pallavi and the anupallavi together to give you the charanam. In this class, we also would like to include the classic example of the Pancharatna Kritis of Sri Thyagaraja, which are a form by their own, I would say. Though you call them as Pancharatna Kritis and Kirtanas, they form a class by themselves in the sense that you see that they are a different kind of a format, incorporating aspects of the Varnam, Kriti, the Tana Varnam, then Swarajati, and so on. Like this, we see that Thyagaraja has given us so many facets for the Kriti. Very interestingly, has exploded to the zenith, I would say, and he was also kind of a trendsetter for the future composers and future Vagekaras to follow his path. We'll now look into another composition of Sri Thyagaraja to see how the particular kind of, the theme line, there is no demarcation, I would say, in terms of the Pallavi and the Anupallavi or Charanam, where the single similar tune goes on repetitively throughout the composition, like Nagumomu Galavani Namano Haruni Nagumomu Galavani Namano Haruni Jagamelu Shuruni Janaki Varuni Devadi Devuni Divya Sundaruni Shivasu Devuni Sita Ragavuni Sugyana Nidini Soma Surya Lochanuni Agyana Tamamunu Anachu Bhaskaruni Nirmala Karuni Nikilaga Haruni Darbadi Mokshambu Dayacheyu Ganuni Bodhato Palumaru Pujilchi Nena Radiltu Sri Thyagaraja Salnuduni Nagumomu Galavani. So you saw Nagumomu Devadi Nirmala. Like this, each of the stanzas follows the same tune verbatim from throughout the composition. Now, coming back to the Pancharatna Kritis of Sri Thyagaraja, I would like to elaborate it a bit more in the sense that in general parlance, we say Pancharatna Kriti, Pancharatna Kirtana. But if you look at it intently, as I said before, it's a unique form by itself, combining so many aspects. So it does have a Pallavi, Anupallavi, and multiple Charanas. The Pallavi with its respective Sangatis, Anupallavi also with its Sangatis. But the Charanam takes a complete twist here in terms of having Swara Sahityam as part of its construction itself. Let's take the popular example of Jagadananda Karaka. Jagadaya Nandaka Araga dayananda karaka jag dayananda karaka jag dayananda karaka. So here you would have seen the progression happening just like any other Kriti format. The Anupallavi also happening like Gagana Dipasa Kula Jara Rajeshwara Gagana Dipasa Kula Jara Rajeshwara Suguna Kara Surasevya. It goes on like that. Then coming to the Charanam, where you see sa sa ni pa 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 sa sa ri sa sa ma ma ri sa ma ma pa pa ma ma pa ma ma ri sa sa ni pa pa ma ma pa sa sa ni sa ni sa ni pa sa ni pa ma ri sa sa ni pa ma ri sa ri ga ma jag अमर तारक निचय कुमुदगित परिपूर्ण नक सुर सुर भूज दधिपयो दिवासगरण सुंदर धर वदन सुधा मयवचो बृंद गोविंद स नंदम वराज राज शुभकर नेक जगद. So when we talk about the Pancharatnam later, we'll elaborate more on its form. Nevertheless, we see that Thyagaraja has composed and created and evolved so many beautiful formats of the Kriti for us to enjoy, which has also come into the concert format to give it so much variety.